Hello, welcome to Digital Farm TV Rural News. I'm Andy Walker. Australia's hard-nosed meat processing sector has scored a federal government win in easing the cost burden associated with the controversial carbon tax by winning a commitment to higher levels of funding for carbon mitigation. Federal Climate Change Minister Greg Combet announced that larger processors directly exposed to the carbon tax could access dollar-for-dollar grants under the government's $1 billion Green Technology Investment Program. Beef Central website reported that previously the government had committed only to support such projects to the tune of $1 for every $2 or $3 spent by processors. The change in policy could be worth as much as $27 million in costs saved by the processing sector's larger operators. Dairy producers are the ultimate losers in the supermarket milk price wars. CSU's Professor Peter Wynne discusses the major challenges facing food producer, and he leaves little doubt in the end that the consumers will pay. Professor Peter Wynne.
The dairy industry is facing challenges at the moment with the with the milk pricing at the moment. Supermarkets are really in a competitive mode at the moment, trying to outdo each other on prices, and of course, they're subsidising the cost of production of milk by doing this, and ultimately the lower milk price has to be passed on to the consumers, to the producers, and you can't produce milk below the cost of production. I mean, dairy farmers are really doing it tough at the moment in trying to make a profit out of dairying. It's an industry that has a lot of input, and so it's a high input industry, and therefore the public has to be prepared to pay the cost of production at least with a viable profit margin for dairy farmers. The way supermarkets are going at the moment, this is simply not viable.
It's official. It's a great time to be a farmer. From the President of the National Farmers Federation, Jock Laurie, through the Federal Agriculture Minister, Senator Joe Ludwig, to the Managing Director of Grains Research and Development Corporation, John Harvey. Everyone's singing about sunshine. A convergence of factors including economic growth in Asia, the weather across the USA corn and soybean belt, crop failures and surging export demand for grains, livestock and dairy are contributing to the sunny outlook. Some observers have begun to predict that agriculture's contribution to Australia's gross domestic product will soon outstrip the contribution of the manufacturing sector. The major caveat continues to be global market volatility and economic impact of struggling European economies, not to mention the weather. Talking of global market volatility, a combination of growing demand, drought-impacted supplies and the global credit crunch will maintain uncertainty in grain prices during the coming 18 months. And with deregulation of the Canadian wheat market last week, Australia is today facing new competition in its Asian export destinations. These forecasts were among those heard by more than 700 registered delegates at the Australian Grains Industry Conference in Melbourne last week. Speakers predicted short-term uncertainty in the global grains market, despite a strong outlook in the long term, thanks to a growing population of middle-class consumers in China and India. The drought in the United States on the back of crop failures in Argentina and Brazil has driven global grain prices to record levels, providing an opportunity for Australian industry to capitalise on its good season. An advanced new device called the Wool Comfort Meter, which can accurately predict the comfort levels of garments, is on the cusp of becoming a commercial reality and revolutionising the way garments are sold. The new machine has been developed by the Cooperative Research Centre for Sheep Industry Innovation in conjunction with the CSIRO, a group of wool R&D and marketing organisations and government agencies. The world's biggest knitwear company, the Crystal Group, last week began testing the comfort meter at its Chinese mills. The trial follows on from successful tests at the world's second largest textile firm, Seal Textiles, in Mauritius earlier this year. The results of these major trials had seriously impressed the industry's leading players, according to Sheep CRC chief James Rowe. The Wool Comfort Meter had the potential to improve demand for woolen garments by giving retailers the ability to guarantee comfort levels. Western Australian barley growers have a new weapon against powdery mildew thanks to a permit allowing them to use an alternative fungicide to combat the costly disease. The permit comes as new research reveals the presence of a recent mutation in Western Australian strains of powdery mildew, apparently responsible for high levels of resistance to triazole fungicides compared with other states. Professor Richard Oliver from the Grains Research and Development Corporation supported Australian Centre for Necrotrophic Fungal Pathogens said the permit provided another tool for managing powdery mildew, which caused losses of up to 100 million Australian dollars in Western Australia last year. While dry conditions had limited the development of the disease this season, growers would nevertheless benefit from the availability of spiroxamine, a Group 5 fungicide with an alternative mode of action new to Australia, he said.